Hi everyone, and welcome to the complete HTML course for absolute beginners. So if you are just a beginner and you're just getting started with web development, HTML is the first thing you need to be passing by. So this course is perfectly for you to fully understand what is HTML, the basics of HTML, and this basic standard of the web. So if you want to become a web developer, obviously getting started with HTML is the first step you need to do on all of that. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is not a programming language like a lot of newbie developers intend to say and just in a mistake, while on the other hand it is basically a markup language. So it's pretty much like extended from XML, if you know XML or not, but it is just simply a markup language that allows you to describe the contents of the web page. So in this course we will be learning full HTML from scratch in 60 minutes. So if you're just getting started, this course is perfectly for you to get started with. So without further ado, let's move on and let's set up our working environment. So let's jump right now and let's just go ahead and set up the environment we're going to be working on, and for the HTML course in particular. So all you're going to be needing for that is actually, to get started, you need like a code editor. You can start with a notepad, like a simple notepad code editor, but what I preferably need to do or you can install is actually Visual Studio Code, which is like the modern code editor you can find nowadays, and a lot of developers like around the globe are already using this. It's pretty much being developed by the Microsoft team, so just for your knowledge. So it is, as I said before, you can use it for any kind of like web developments, mobile developments. You can pretty much use it for desktop developments, machine learning, much more. It's more like an IDE in particular case, and it is available on all platforms. Clearly here I'm running on Ubuntu, and it has like the Debian package. It has an RPM for Red Hat and Fedora and everything else. So if you're like running Windows or something, you just like install the exe for Windows. In the other case for Linux, you're just gonna find the distribution for your particular Linux distribution. In my case is Ubuntu, so you can read more about the code editor and you can know more about it. It's also available for Mac, so yeah, Mac 10.10 and plus, and you can grab it in the editor. So just click on the download button, you download it, you install it, and you are pretty much ready to get started. And the other editor, or pretty much it's just like a code editor, not the VS Code, is more like an IDE, but you still can go ahead and work with Sublime Text. It is super lightweight, so if you have like a really low-end computer that doesn't really run so much, still Visual Studio Code is really great. It's gonna run smoothly. There's no hookups, nothing at all, because it's just HTML. But on the other hand, you can still use Sublime Text because it is super lightweight. It's just clearly in here, very easy to get started with, and of course it is available for cross-platform, so you can start for Linux, Windows, and even Mac OS X. So after opening up Visual Studio Code, so this is actually the main theme that you could pretty much get for that. You can customize it, of course, you can start a couple of extensions, but that's not our job in here. So let's go ahead and get started and create our first directory for the project that I'm going to be working on. So what you can do like a new file, or you can open up a folder. So I'm going to be just doing open up a folder. I'm going to grab this right here, because you got a bunch of tutorials, but I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm just gonna name this HTML course. I'm just gonna put that, click OK, and this folder is gonna be with my working folder or workspace or something. So HTML course is gonna be like my workspace in here, and you can create files, create subfolders inside of it, and so on and so forth, just right from the editor's clearly in here. So let's go ahead and install, or pretty much create our HTML page. So this HTML page is actually what you need to get started with. So like for an HTML page has the extension of HTML. So, and for the standards, or what most of the developers and the whole world pretty much who tries to create an HTML page, like the main web page, which is like the home page or something, is you preferably like name it as an index. So you start like index, then you put an extension for it, which is HTML. There's also an extension which is just HTML, but it's preferably not to do so because this is for older versions and stuff. And for HTML5 in particular, which is the last version of HTML, so you just put HTML. That's it. You click enter, and you've got your HTML file ready to get started with. So as simple as that, you just like type in the name, then the extension, it should be HTML, and you are pretty much ready to get started. And as I've said before, the index means because it is the main file, it's the main entry point, So you can name it whatever you can mean, like anything in here .html, and you're still gonna get that. And what I like the most about Visual Studio Code is actually you get the icon in here. It tells you that is actually an HTML file indeed in that particular case. So yeah, that is pretty awesome, as I said before, about that code editor. But nevertheless, I don't need that anyway, so I'm gonna get rid of it. And we got our HTML page. So before starting off into the coding part in here, we have to know about who is actually behind making this kind of like HTML thing and making the whole browser thing and stuff like that, and the whole web standards and stuff. So there is actually this organization or consortium. It's called the w3.org. So you can just go to w3.org, and it is actually a shortcut for World Wide Web. So yeah, that's why they said it's actually W3, because there's 3 W's for each word in that. And this particular consortium or organization is actually behind making the web standards. So it tells it gets or it puts the new HTML versions. It tells how HTML actually operates. It gets to pretty much set all the rules that the HTML runs, and many other technologies that empowers the web, like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and many more like standards and IPCs. So all of those are actually being put by this organization. So you can take a look on the website. You can go w3.org, and you're gonna find plenty of things you can pretty much learn from. So let's just go trying to make our first page structure, and we're gonna be just creating or putting the main page components just to put our first page in here. So we're first going to be starting off by putting the document type. So you just put an exclamation mark at the beginning, and you put document type. So doc type is just like a shortcut for document type. Then afterward you put HTML. So as simple as that. So what this marks is pretty much is actually what is the type of the document. And we're going to get back into this in a second to pretty much explain more about this. So we're going to be also creating our first HTML tag. You probably know what is an HTML tag, but we're still going to get back into this in a second. So we're going to create our root HTML tag in here, and it's actually going to be the root of everything. I'm going to be creating the head, and the head in here is actually going to hold up all the information about the web page and everything around that. I'm going to have the body. So this is actually the body of our web page, and voila. So as simple as that. This is actually the structure of a basic web page. There is actually the HTML, which is the root element of all other elements. There's no any other elements comes, or no other tag comes before the HTML. So just like the first one is actually the HTML, then there is the head, which comes first, then there is the body. So as basic as that, this is actually what an HTML page looks like. It's pretty basic, has no elements, nothing at all, just like an empty web page. That's how it basically works like. Now let's just jump back into the document type. Now what I mean by the document type in here, and what is the meaning, why the W3 decided to put something like that. Now before HTML5, the current version we are actually working on is actually there was like an HTML4, then like an XHTML, so older version of HTML. So just to decide which version of HTML, so you have to put the document type, and you have to put like what type of version it is, and you can link to the web standards or the W3.org for that particular version indeed. So we don't need to do that because HTML5 or the last version, you have to select to refer HTML in that particular case. But in the other case, if you're running like on HTML4 or XHTML, what you have to do is something like this. So instead of this, we have to put all of that rubbishness in here. So you have to do document type is HTML public, then you just like say W3D and DTD, and you just like have a reference to the actual DTD of the current HTML version, which you're using HTML4 from the like World Wide Web official websites, and you link all of that, and you just do like transitional to English and many just things that makes no sense. But this is how you do it in HTML4 and XHTML. So you have to refer to that particular DTD in order to be able to make all that happen. But nonetheless, just like a basic history to understand how HTML operated before all that. But now, just from now on, all you have to do is just like put the doc type, you put before it, make sure to put for like an exclamation mark, then you put in HTML. That's simple as that. This is actually the first line you have to start with, because this is going to tell the browser we're going to be running the web page on any browser, either Chrome, Firefox, or anything. So this is the like informational line of code that's going to tell the browser which version is actually running, and it's going to tell you that we are pretty much going to run an HTML page. Simple as that. So that's the whole basic thing about it, and that's how it should be looking like. Now let's jump back into here and let's understand what is an HTML tag. So an HTML tag is something like starts with this like an opening curly brace or an opening bracket. Let me just call it bracket from now on. So it starts with an opening bracket, then there is the tag name inside of it, and it ends with a closing bracket. But this is actually the opening tag, and there is also a closing tag of the same tag. So what I mean by this, so if you just like open up, let's try to open up like the same HTML. So you open up the like opening bracket, then you type the name of the tag. So each tag has a particular name. So here we've got an HTML, and this tag is actually the head tag, and there's the body tag, and so on and so forth. So basically, you start like putting the HTML tag in here, the name of the tag, then you put closing. By default, VS Code, once we close a tag, it also just like puts the ending of the tag automatically. So we don't need that. Just like close the bracket, but this is only the opening tags. What I said before is actually you have to close the tag. So there are some tags or particular specific HTML elements that doesn't require to be closed, but most of them require to be closed in here. So we're going to go through all of that later on, but for now there's an opening tag. Like this is actually the opening tag, and this is the closing tag. Now what is special about the closing tag is there is actually like an opening bracket, and just right of it there is like a /. So always there's a /, then there's the same name of the tag, then a closing thing. Voila. So that's simple as that. This is what an HTML tag looks like. So there is also, like in that particular tag, there's an opening tag and a closing tag. And a closing tag like has a / before the tag's name in that particular case. So it is pretty simple actually to think about it. So all of those are here. Actually, there is a head, and it has a closing tag in that case. There's a body, then it has a closing tag, and so on and so forth. And what is so special about these tags, so once you open up a tag, you put some children on it. So each tag can have as many children as it takes, and particularly or specifically for that tag. So there is some tags like text that only takes one children, which is just simple text like hello world, and then it closes up. But there's other children like the HTML, which is root, so it can take the whole tags lives on the web page. So there's like the head tag is out of it, there's the body tag, there's much more going on in it. So all the data of the web page goes inside the HTML tag. So in that particular case, this is actually the opening tag, and after you finish at the same level, you have to close the tag. So recently we opened up this first, it has to be closed last. Not how it works. Now we opened up the head first, it has to be closed just right after, because we're going to be putting here. Let's say we want to put something inside of the head. There is actually a tag called title that's going to set the title of the web page. So we're going to have like a title, you just open it and close it. As I said before, VS Code is going to automatically close that for us. So yeah, there is like MS abbreviation working on it here. So that's doing pretty good damn job. So you start off like open up the title tag, then you close the tag, and the title of the web page goes inside of it. Now this one is actually a child of the head, and the title tag only works on the head tag. It can't work on the body, it can't work outside of that. So all the tags has to work pretty much inside some particular tag. And in other case, you can't put tag outside of the HTML root tag, so all of them has to be put inside of the HTML tag. So here I can say like web page title, and that should be awesome. Just like Control S to save it, make sure to save it. So all of the HTML files, if you found like this little dot in here, which means the file is not saved, so you have to do Control S on your keyboard, or you can just go jump to file, then you can do save, or you can run save all to save multiple files, but just save is going to do the job for us, and voila, so we got that simple in here. So as I said before, so each tag can have like multiple children, so we can have all the children here inside of the head, and so on and so forth, and we're going to learn about this later on. So all you have to know, there's actually an opening tag and a closing tag for every HTML tag in particular, or you can call it an HTML element. And yeah, that's all you simply need to be knowing for that particular case. Now, what is the difference between a head and a body? So, as I said before, this is actually the main structure of a web page, a simple HTML page. Now, the HTML, as I said before, is actually the root elements of the whole web page. The head is going to represent like a metadata and an informational data that's going to be telling the browser particular information. Like, it's going to tell the browser what is the title of this current page. For example, it's going to tell the browser that it has to be run on a specific zoom. So the web page could be zoomed like 4x or 5x or something like that. You can tell so many informational things to that. So the header only can tell informational things that are not visible on the web page. So if you put anything in here, nothing is going to be visible on the web page inside of the head tag. Now, on the other hand, the body, what it does represent, it puts all the contents. So whatever you put inside of the body is going to be showed up on the page's body. Simple as that. So head has nothing to do with that, and the body, all the contents of the web page are going to be put inside of these body tags. So yeah, this is actually the basic difference between all of these tags. And I said before, the title tag in here, so whenever you put data inside of it, so you just like, you open it, you close it, and for the tag you put like whatever data you have to do here. So you put the web page's title to pretty much set the web page title. Now let's try to go ahead and just like try to run our HTML page. So we got a basic page in here with a web page title and just a basic HTML structure. Now, how we can take this file and run it to see how our web page looks like. So to run a web page, you need a web browser, and pretty much any computer, any OS installation has a default web browser. So there's Firefox, Chrome, Safari, or Internet Explorer. By the way, Internet Explorer is actually dead, so I don't really recommend going with Internet Explorer at all. So just like completely find an alternative. And Google Chrome sounds a really great JAWS. So yeah, choice bias, sorry. So you can just go ahead and start with Chrome, which is a great idea. But first, you have to grab your index.html, or you find the file and run it on Chrome. How you do that? So you find files, so you can just go into files. So after opening up files, you just pretty much find the directory where you put this HTML. So mine is stores, and I need to find HTML course. Well, God help me, there it goes. And here we go. So we got index.html. It depends on the OS. If you're running Windows, you're gonna pretty much find the same thing in here. Now, what we can do in here is actually make sure to open up the browser here, and in a pretty simple way, just grabbing this, and you can drag and drop it. As simple as that. What you can also do is actually right click and do open up with Google Chrome, and pretty much it's gonna open up with Google Chrome in here, either with this window or a completely brand new window space in here. Now, the interesting part about this is actually you're gonna get a web page title. So this is actually our web page, and you get like the directory where the web page resides in, and we got our web page title. So if you intend to go in here, like add blah, save it, go back, and there you go. So if you refresh, so make sure to always refresh it, either by pressing Ctrl R on your keyboard or just pressing this little tiny thing. So you're just gonna have a refreshed web page, and we got a brand new title. Now, as so many pages you find out there, so pretty much any website or any web page you find on the internet pretty much doesn't have only HTML, because as we said before, HTML only tells the structure of the web page. So it only just puts like the data of the web page, like specific links or specific text, like paragraphs and stuff like that, but it doesn't specify the color of that text, the font family, or how this text actually aligned or displayed, or in particular the layout or the responsiveness of the web page. So who does that, or what technology does that, is actually the CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheet. So it's responsible for putting all the styles of web page, different styles of text and colors, background colors, layouts and displays and everything, all of that. So yeah, we're not going to be having the best web page for that particular case, so still for that CSS. And there's this specific thing, which is the link tag. Now the link tag lives inside of the head brackets, or the head tag in here. So what is about the link tag is pretty much going to set a relationship between the HTML5 and other files. So in our case, let's try to put like link a file, which is going to be this style file, our CSS style file. So this link tag is going to be called like link. There's of course only an opening in here. So it is actually a super special one. So as I said before, there's some tags where there's like an opening tag and a closing tag. But for the link tag, there's only one tag. And when there is only one tag, what you need to do is actually enclose that in line, which means you don't need to just like do another tag like this and you put a link. So there isn't something exist like this, so it never exists this. What you need to do is actually before the closing bracket you have to put like the /, which means this is actually the ending and it is currently like an inline tag. So there's actually two specific tags, like one with an opening and a closing, and there's this like kind of tags which is an inline closing tag, and pretty much. So for the link tag in here, it has some attributes. We're going to be talking about attributes later on, but for now we're just going to have this. So there is actually a style attribute or style sheet attribute. There's so many relationship. This REL stands for relationship. So what is the file, or what is actually the relationship of the file we are linking it to our HTML page? So for this case, it's actually the style sheet, and for the style sheet it means like a style sheet. It's pretty much a CSS sheet or a CSS file, and it has like an href, which stands for hyperlink or hyperreference. So for that you have to reference the file. In our case, I don't have a file, but as you can try to create like something called style.css. So this is not a CSS, actually a course of a CSS or something. So just like for demonstration purposes, I'm going to be creating this. We're going to have another course about CSS, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to be just creating this and have to link the CSS. So you can put in here either relative or absolute path. So for relative path, it actually either starts with a dot and a / or like starts with double dots or something like this. And for like absolute like links, where you find them, you find something like this, HTTP, then you find like google.com or something. This is an absolute path. Or you find something like this, there is no dots, or you find something like this, roots and / and like styles and something like this. But in our case, we got the file in here, so we can just link it to style.css. Now, using the link tag now, we have linked this CSS file with our web page. So which means we have included the style.css into our web page so the style can take effect. So this is exactly what the link tag means, and it has so many relationships, so you can use it for so many things, like including author sheets and all those stuff like that. But it is mostly used for that particular case, actually to include some kind of styles, and it only lives on the head. So if let's say you're going to be using a lot of like frameworks or libraries, so all the links lives inside of the head of your web page. So just like you import all of these like frameworks, libraries in here, so you can just later on use them inside of your style. So yeah, as basic as that, this is what it is. It's not going to be doing any changes in here, so yeah, keep that in mind. So now let's just try to put something into our web page. So for HTML, there's so many tags, and everything in HTML actually depends on the tags themselves. So you have to know what each tag does, but you know, you should like, you don't have to memorize this, like take a sheet and just keep memorizing it. No, this is not how it works. So all you need to do is just like keep practicing, create some projects, something like that, and just by time, just by practicing and putting some work on this, you are pretty much gonna understand what each tag does, and you're just gonna be memorizing it. You can have this like dead memory, just put in your head like your name or your wife's name or whatever. So you're just gonna be knowing it the right way you should be, so without memorizing. And for that case, we're just going to be just putting called a P tag, or it is the paragraph tag. So the P tag in here, so it's just P, just like a shortcut for paragraph, and it's actually responsible for putting text inside of a web page. So let's try to put hello world from the other side learning HTML. And it is, as I said before, not responsible for a title or something. It's responsible for a paragraph. And you just put that, like an opening and a closing of a P. You get back in here, you have to refresh, and you get this. So you get hello from the other side after HTML. Let me just zoom in so you can clearly see what I'm doing behind the scenes. So we got hello from the other side, and this is actually a paragraph. And we can put as many paragraphs as I want. If you see me like putting just P and clicking on the tab, just to get the image doing its job, like automatic creation. So this is because VS Code has that. So you can just put the tag name, you press like on the tab, and you get this done for you. On the other hand, what you can do, just create the tag by yourself. Let me just like, this is me learning HTML from scratch. Control S, make sure to save it, always make sure to save it. We can go file save, and we can refresh that. There you go, we got another paragraph. And you can put as many data as you want on the paragraph, but yeah, still everything is going to be showed up in here. So each paragraph is going to have its own line. So you're just going to get like into the new line and puts the content of the paragraph in that particular line. So this is actually what the P paragraph does. Just as simple as that. It just like puts some text data into the web page, and make sure to put it inside of the body, because the body is what shows the content. Now, if you want, like for example, we got, this is actually a simple paragraph in here, just 2 paragraphs in particular, and it's only used for paragraphs. But let's say I have a web page and something like that, and I want to put a title for my web page. Of course, each page or each paragraph should have a title, and there's so many options for the title in HTML. So for HTML, there's something, all the titles called H. So it starts with the H. As clearly seen here, we got H1, H2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we got header, head. So those are not like included whatsoever. So you just like from 1 to 6, and these are actually the type of headers that we have in HTML. So starting from the first is actually the biggest header. So it is a super big size header, and going all the way down to the 6th, which is very small header as well, but still it is actually a header. So you're gonna have like a bold and a really black text. So try the H1 in here, put it, and just put like HTML. Control S, you go to there, you just like say that, and there you go. This is actually what we got. So we got learning HTML, basic as that, and this is actually, as I said before, this is actually the biggest one among all of them. But if you want to just like have like smaller version of this, just to change it to H3, save it, go back, so you see we got it smaller and smaller. And if we change it to H6 or something, so we're still gonna have let's refresh, and as you see, this is the smaller text, but it's still bold, which means it is actually a title among all of these. So you can have all of that in here, but what I want, title. Go back in here, got the first title, second title, and the last one. And as clearly see, the title has some margin, unlike the paragraphs. They have just so small margin between both of these paragraphs, but the title has a quite large title, so it demonstrates that this is actually a title. So let's see how we can just style some text a little bit. Now we got in here just simple paragraphs. I'm gonna get rid of these, and I'm gonna put some lorem ipsum text. I just copy pasted from the internet, just Google lorem ipsum, just like to have a demonstration of how things should be looking like on a real paragraph, and that's what it looks like. I can just zoom out because I'm using some zoom in here, so if you prefer this better, yeah, it would be, I think, better in that case. Anyways, now let's say we got a paragraph in it. It's a really huge paragraph with a lot of text, but I don't know, for some reason you just like want to style some text, like you want to put this in bold, you want to put this in italic, so on and so forth. You want to just like underline something, and so on and so forth. So let's say like we want to do like lorem ipsum in bold. So there's a specific tag for this. It's called the B tag, which is a shortcut for bold, as you have already like guessed. And yeah, we have an opening tag, and make sure to put it on the closing tag. So once we do that, only this lorem ipsum text is going to be affected by the bold. Not all of the other characters and other lines of text are going to be affected by this. It's going to be like normal, regular text, but this one is going to be super bold text. So if we jump back in here, like refresh, and there you go, we got this is actually in bold, and all the others just a regular lightweight text. So you can do it with pretty much whatever. You can have this one, and you can still put it in bold, and it still can do the job perfectly. So there's also another tag that does the same thing as bold, but it has like a couple of different meaning, which is the strong tag. So for bold, it only visually shows as a bold, but for strong, it shows it as a bold in the visuals, but also it emphasizes the text. So it just like makes sure the text stays strong, like for SEOs and stuff like that. So you can put that, but you're not going to be seeing any like changes if you just do Control S. Yeah, you're going to get the same boldy thing, but this is actually a strong and this is only a visual bold. So they both have the same semantics. Of course, you can do other things like underlining. So if you just like U, so U is actually for underline. It's pretty much a shortcut for underline. You put that and refresh. You should get in like an underline in here. So root term has an underline. You can pretty much have it whatever you would like to. Let's say, for example, you wanted to do something like strike through, so you have like to like delete text to visually show this is currently a deleted text. So you can do S, which is shortcut for strike through. So you can have all of that inside of a strike through. As you see now, it is under the strike through. So just like having that particular case, you can also put some text like italic if you want to. So you can do something like I, which is, as I said, for shortcut for italic. You just put that and you are gonna get the whole word in here in italic. Now let's see, on our web page we want to do something like a link that takes us into another website. For example, we want to take to iPreneurs.com, or I want to take to Google or any other external link once he clicks on that particular link. So for creating links on HTML, there is the A tag, or which is a shortcut for hyperlink. So A is just like you just put an A in there and that's it. This is actually the tag. Now the tag has some attributes, so we will explain attribute in a second, but for this attribute it's called the href. As I said before, href, so whatever you find this tag is pretty much either represented with file paths or either like website addresses like www. or http google.com or facebook.com or something. So here you put where you want to take the user once he clicks that. So for example, we want to take him to google.com, and here you put whatever text you want to be displayed, because this one is not going to be displayed. This one, once he clicks on the displayed text, it's going to be taken to that particular page. So go to Google, for example, and we save that, go back. So you see we got in here. And why this color? Because I already clicked the text. You have probably already known that because you use Google, for example. So Google has this as well. So if you click that, you see the page is refreshed and it takes us directly to Google without asking for it in here. It's just by clicking the link. But if you want to just like to open up a new window, not on the same page, you want to open a new window and take him to that, there's other attribute called the target. So you just put which target is going to be making. So there's actually the blank value. So here blank, which means take it or open up a new window. So once we click that, you see our still a page, but we got like redirected in here, taken to google.com. So just a fun fact to know about that, and that's basically what links looks like. So of course you can still use links for like downloading things. So if you like have an index.html in here or something, and you want to download that, you still can be using this, of course, just by linking it to the same file. You have like a TXT file or PDF file, and it still can be downloaded without any issues in here. Well, let's say you're going to want to download this picture. So I just grabbed some picture in here, and let's say we wanted to download this using the link tag. So I'm going to have href like pointing to our picture. So make sure just to make it point to picture, whatever the picture name and the extension is, and just put the download tag or attribute in here. Just like put download there, no value, just like put it download, so it marks as download. And we can have like change the text, download me, and we can just go back into the browser and just click in that, and there you go. It takes us to our web page. In that particular case, you can still go and Control S and have it like download for you guys. In all the versions you might just actually download that, but yeah, still using the link tag you can still be doing something like this. Now for an HTML attribute, if you're wondering what is an HTML attribute, so there are some basic and standard HTML attribute that works all the way around. So let's say we got this paragraph tag, and an attribute actually goes inside the opening tag, not on the closing. This is actually the closing tag of it, and this is actually the opening tag of it. So let me just visualize this in here. So we can have a P, and what we can do is actually put our tag. So the tag comes after the tag name on the opening tag. So you just like right before you close the opening tags bracket, you put the attributes in here. So attributes actually are key value pairs. So you put the value, for example, in here we're gonna put ID, and you could put like my P, my paragraph or something. And here, this is actually an ID. So for the ID attribute, what it represents is actually to give a specific ID to that particular element. So later on, using JavaScript or CSS for styling that element, you just like put the ID name in here, and you are going to be referencing that particular element, either for applying some style or using JavaScript. You can change the elements, like manipulate whatever, however you want, dynamically. Just using that. So by putting the ID, you just gonna be telling it or assign an ID to that particular element identically. So it's gonna have a unique ID for all of that, and one ID in here cannot be assigned to other elements. So this my paragraph ID cannot be assigned to any other element but this one. So this one has only this ID. On the other hand, there is other attributes called the class. So the class attribute in here can have as many IDs as you want, and they can share it with other elements. So you pretty much have the same thing in here. So for example, like it has like P, it has paragraph, all of them are like space separated. So let me just put my paragraph in here. Like it can have like a class of text. So each one of these are separated by space, are pretty much classes for that particular element. And as I said before, multiple elements can have the same class. So you can go to header in here, and you can have the same class and give it in here without an issue. So classes can be shared among multiple elements, while IDs are uniquely to identify each element alone. So you can have this ID, you can just put it on that particular title, but you still can have the same ID in here. So you can have like my header or something like that. So it has to be different from this, and it has to be unique for that. But for classes, you have the same thing. So each of those are actually representing that you can reference these on JavaScript or CSS. So we can talk more about this in the CSS or the JavaScript courses that are coming next in the channel. So just stay tuned, make sure to subscribe, push that like button if you like it, of course. And yes, just stay tuned for these courses. So this is basically the attributes, how they look like. Now there's the second specific type of attribute. There's actually a specific attribute, for example, for the hypertext or the A elements, there's the href, while the P doesn't have that, because the A is actually responsible for taking actions or like redirecting to specific things. For the link, there's the RLD, which for like putting style sheets, and href, and so on and so forth. So each particular element has its own specific and unique attributes, while all the other elements share the same thing, share the ID in the class in that particular case. And you can have custom attributes. So you can have custom attributes starting with data. So every custom attribute must start with data, as like the data keyword, then a dash, then you can name your attribute whatever, like data name, and you can put a value like paragraph or something, or like you can put hello, you can put Alex or something like that, whatever value in here. And you can have as many as you want. So for example, you can do data Alex equals me, and this is actually a custom attribute. So later on in JavaScript or CSS, you could reference to that particular thing to get that particular element. So yeah, those actually are custom attributes. So you can have them whatever you want depending on the case, but those are pretty much a standard thing among all other tags, while there is the like specific or unique attributes. So each element has its own unique attributes. So this is basically what HTML attributes are and how they look like. Now if you see like websites like Facebook and other places where it has like so many things like navigation bar, then there's like the form, then there's like a side, right side and a left side with different colors and stuff like that. So they're not done directly by putting text in P's and headers and stuff like that. So they use something like divisions on an HTML, and divisions are a really important thing and HTML. So it's actually a shortcut of a div. So this is what a division is, and it doesn't actually render anything or does any of that particular case. It just like puts a division so you can control that particular division. You can just imagine it a section of a web page. So you can do like a section with a full width of the web page and like a 50 pixels height of the web page. And this division is actually going to be like for a title of the web page or pretty much a navigation bar or something like that. So yeah, you can have divisions in here, and divisions can have as many children as you would love. So you can have a division in here, and you can put inside of it like inside div, inside of it like a P, and you can put inside of it so many things. You can have the same thing in here going on, and you can have multiple P's or multiple children, but these are actually inside that particular divisions. So yeah, so each division has its own like unique thing. You still can use like IDs or classes to definitely identify that uniquely, but still this is what divisions are, and they are very important. If you just go to the next level and advanced level, create more complicated and complex styles and web pages, divisions are just like important. So let's move on into the image tag for letting us to display any type of images or something into our like website. So it is actually a shortcut of IMG, and you just put that, and this is actually one of the special tags there which has no closing tag. So you just like this. Either you can leave it without an ending /, but it's better just to put that / right there, just for your convenience. But yeah, you still can just go ahead and ignore that completely, because it knows there's no closing tag for this, because it's a special tag element in HTML, as we talked about before, the link tag in here. So this one has two main attributes. It has the SRC, which is the main attribute, and alt in here you can pretty much get over it. You can delete it or something. What it represents just a simple text to explain the image. So you can like explain something like profile picture, and it is more useful for SEOs or search engine optimization. So you can ignore that, or you can put it there. But the most important part is actually the SRC. So the source that we're going to be displaying, either an HTML or like an image you can grab from the internet. You can search Google and you grab an image link and you can put it in here. There you go. Now put the image link. So this is how you know the image link, and just Control S. If you go back to the browser, there you go. We got our image, our cat image, laying down there without any issues. Of course, this is actually like getting an image from the internet, like from an external source. But what you can also do, you can have the same thing. Let me get rid of this alt, from a local source. So you can display this image in particular. So you can do pic.jpg, just put the name, or if it is inside of folders, put the path of it. If you're fresh, there you go. So you got this picture alongside this picture, whatever. So it's kind of ridiculous. This one is quite huge. So you can manage to put this one like with particular width. So you can say this one has to be 50 pixels in height of like 60 pixels or something. You're fresh, and you just like get this resized. So this is the height and the width attribute to decide with this, and using pixels, of course. So the most important part in HTML is actually the most important component, where every web page, every website pretty much, or web application, even mobile applications, is pretty much everywhere has. So this one is actually the forms. So forms lives pretty much everywhere. So forms like input forms, where you input your username, password, email, checkboxes, radio buttons, and so on and so forth. So all of those are actually integrated in HTML, and there's so many features, so many tags inside of them. So just try to go through the basics one and the most important ones for you to get started really quick with it, and later on you can just get started with all of that. So the most important component you need to start with, or most important elements, is actually the form elements. So it's actually the roots for all the forms. So you start like, you put form, it has an opening and a closing, and it has children. So all the inputs, radio buttons, checkboxes goes inside of that form in particular. So for example, we're gonna have like a specific or simple input for putting a username or something. So for input, it has the input tag. So it has that, and there is actually a special thing about it. It actually has no closing, just like that. It has an input and simply just like an inline closing. So it has a type attribute, which is a specific one for it. And there's so many. As you see, this is all the types of an input attribute. So there's actually a button, you can use it as a checkbox, color, date, file, especially in HTML file. So many things. Either email, could be hidden. You can use it as a number, password, radio, whatever. But what we're simply going to be using it for is actually a text. So we're going to be displaying it for text. And there is actually the placeholder attribute. So we can have the placeholder, and the placeholder is actually what gets placed in the input where there is no value. So once the input is actually empty, so what is the value show? So like a hint or a helper text to show in there. So you can have something like enter your username, like when you find a Twitter or something, enter your username. And there is the value attribute. So the value attribute in here represents what is the value that the input has. For now, we don't want to have like a fixed value, because if you put a fixed value, the user won't be able to type because it has a fixed value. So yeah, simple as that. You can have that there. You can refresh, and there you go. We got our simple username input in here, and it has this placeholder. So once we type in it, the placeholder goes, and it's clear seeing it is a pretty basic like input field in here that you can have. But if you notice, like all inputs in around the globe and all websites has an input, but before the input comes like a simple small label to describe what the input is actually about. So this is as well called a label element. So we're gonna have label, and it has an opening and closing, and like inside of this tag you have the pretty much the text you want to display for that particular input, and you make sure to put it before it. So you can do, for example, username, and to assign or to tell you that this label belongs to this input in particular, we have to do something special. So we have to do ID equals, like we have to assign a specific or unique ID to that particular input. So we can have username, and here we can have the for attribute, and you say for what input it belongs. And of course you have to put the same ID as the input's ID in here. So you have to put like link the for with the input's ID, and make sure to do so in that particular manner. So if you go back in here, refresh, and there you go, we got username, and we got our input field in here for that particular case. Now each input, so since we are actually inside a form, and later on for forms, how it works, it pretty much you're going to be submitting data throughout the network. Like you're going to be sending data from the client, from the browser to your server somewhere, and you're going to be processed and everything. So there's also a name attribute to describe each input with its own name, and most likely you're going to be having the same thing in here, like username to describe it, as this input is going to be having a username name. So later on, the data when inside goes to the server, to the other side, like an API or something, you're gonna like identically retrieve the input data using this particular name inside of the form, of course. So nothing changes once we put the name, but still, there you go. So we got our input in here. So let's say we want something like a checkbox of, we need to type off a checkbox as I said before, and yeah, we need just to like assign a checkbox value for it. So once it's set, like once it is checked and selected, it just pretty much has that value inside of the form, of course. So you can pretty much has, let's say we want like playing games. I'm just gonna copy the same thing in here, and I'm gonna have a label for it. So this label is gonna be for, and gonna be for games, and here we're gonna be having an ID which is for games. So that it belongs here. I'm going to be having the same thing right here. So we can have a couple more checkboxes. So I can have 1, 2, 3. Going to gym recently, and we can have this as gym. So going to gym, and well here running marathon. So here most likely you don't want to just display the whole text in here, so what you can do is just a single word to make it a little bit better. So you can have the same thing as gym, playing games, or you can just have games, and here we can have like running a marathon. Okay. Super cool. Now we can have here as well marathon, so it have to be changed. And we have to assign this for. We have, well, I think this is for a gym, right? Cool. And here this one should be for a gym as well. Super neat. Now we jump back in here, and there you go. So we got playing games, going to gym, and running a marathon. As clear as in here, it's got an inline. So either you can select like playing games. When I select playing games, there you go. You got playing games. You can go into gym. But if you want to have like the checkbox coming first, what you can do is actually reverse this. Like you can have the input comes before the label itself, which means the checkbox comes before that. We can refresh this, and there you go. We got playing games. We can select that. We can go into gym, and we can have running a marathon in here. I would love just to go and take this into an upper level so you can better see that form, since we're actually working on it. So yeah, there you go. So we got a form in here. We can have multiple checkboxes selected and so on and so forth. So this is what basically a checkbox looks like and how it works. You can also have some other things like radio buttons, so you can put something like this, inputs with a type of radio, and you can have the same thing. So you can have a label for it, and you can I am eligible, old, or I am old enough, so you're pretty much accessing a restricted website or something. So you can have an ID in here, says old, and you can have another radio button, so it says young. So pretty much what we can do, I can't young, and yeah, we can have a young there, and there you go. So either you can select like I am young, or pretty much that. But what you need to do is clearly in here, once we click both of these, is actually they get both selected. But in the other side, for radio buttons, only one radio button should be selected, but not both at the same time. So for that, we need to go ahead and have the same name for the radios. Now, the radios doesn't include any name, but what we need to do is actually have a name in here, for example, restriction, and this name should be existing on the same radio that we want to have, like group them together so they can pretty much, once you select one, the other one gets deselected by default. That's how radio buttons works. So if you select this one, click this, it's clearly seen here, automatically deselect this. and so on and so forth. Now the reason we are seeing all of these is actually inline, because by default it does that with the display an inline block. Now what we can do is actually use a break. So I can use the break or BR element, so we can do just BR, and we can have a break between all of these. We won't put it here. Now for input as well, if you want just like to do a different input with a different something like a password or something, you still can do that really easily. So you can have an ID of password, and even the type you change it to password, and you can. So if you do that, you go and type your password. Clearly see it gets your password as hidden password, of course. So this is what a typing looks like. You can even have an email, which the HTML5 has an email type, which if you don't put an email address, so let me just, if I don't put an email address and I submit the form, so I haven't refreshed that yet. So clearly see, it doesn't complain, but if I haven't submitted the form later on with a submit button, it's going to complain and tell me that I'm going to be needing an email. So it's just going to do some basic validation for an email as well. Also, actually, another type is, instead of just having a linear input that you're restricted to some like a single line of text, you can have text areas where it is pretty much not limited. So you can have as many columns as you want, as many rows as you want. So 10 rows and 30 columns at maximum. Fresh, there you go, got our text area. So we can type whatever we want. So I need to put a BR, another one, just to get some space in, and also I need some BR here. Okay, there you go. So there's actually a text area. You can do hello world, and you can pretty much change the size either vertically or horizontally without any issues. So you can have like as many as you want, as many rows or columns as you want, and depending on what you select in here, for example, we selected 30. If you select 10, you're gonna have a really small one at the first, but you still you can have them resizable. You can of course change this behavior for resizable and not resizable using CSS, which we will take on the next course coming out on this channel. And the most important part of all of these and all forms and stuff from HTML is actually buttons. So a button is actually represented using the button tag in here, or element. So you just put button, and there's actually an opening and closing. In between this, you put the button name or the text you're going to be displaying inside of the button. So you can have something like submit, and for the button you can have a type of a button. For example, normal button, menu, reset. But we want to submit because each form has a submit button. Once you click on it, it gets submitted, like you get sending data to a server or something, or you submit the data of the button. So we save that. This is actually a submit button. So you see, once we click here, we get some like weird thing in here because HTML got like submitted, and we sent the form because we haven't set any actions or something. So yeah, that's pretty cool about this. And the last thing I haven't covered yet is actually the select legs. So you can go ahead and put select, which is a select legs or a drop down list. There's actually a select tag in here. So you put a select, and inside of it you put a couple of options. So you put option. Let's say we want to select some players. We can do player 1 of this option, 2, and 3. So you can do 2, 3 in here. We go back, so exclusively we got selected, and player 1, player 2, player 3, and depending on this select, so whatever you put the first is actually gets by default auto selected. So exclusively player 1 is also or always by default the first one selected, but if you want to select another, so just like click it and it gets selected in that. So let's take a look right now on HTML tables. So tables are a really powerful data structure to pretty much visualize data in a really nice way and in the best layout. So yeah, tables are pretty much used everywhere, from Excel sheets into like data science and stuff like that. But in HTML are also very powerful tags and resources to display data. So for a table, what you need to do is actually there is the table tag. So just simple as that, you put table there. There's an opening and closing for the table, and there's so many children for the table. So you just open it with the table, you close it with the table. Now there's actually three main parts of a table element. There is the TR, which stands for table row, and this element is actually responsible for putting a single row of a table. So just like the first row, the second row, and third row, and so on and so forth. So depending on the order you put is actually the row you want. And inside of the row, what you're gonna have is actually two types of elements. Is actually you can have a TH, which stands for table header, which you can have like a header or the title of the table, like a title of a single column. And either hide the TD, which stands for table data, is responsible for displaying an actual data of a table, like a dynamic data, while the TH or the table header is just like a static for all the columns or for all the rows if you want to do so. So we got a TR in here. We're gonna have a table header of it. Let's say like you have a name on that particular side on the first row. Also, we're gonna be having something like gender. We're going to be having a TH email, so simple as that. So I'm going to have H, and yeah, if we go to our browser in here, and clearly see we got our table. Now the table doesn't have any borders whatsoever, because why does it have borders? Because by default the browser doesn't provide that, and our CSS code doesn't provide that. So we can also go ahead and provide this. Now, using some help of CSS creation here, put some style which is not our topic. I just wanted to make the table look a little bit more interesting by adding some borders and making it a little bit bigger. So yeah, as I said before, without it, you're gonna have just like an empty table without any borders, and that's quite ugly and boring. So I just wanted to add that for fun. Now here we got our table, we got name, gender, email, age, and all of these are actually table headers and titles of the table. So we were presented using the TH, of course. So we got table row. So the first row has TH, name, gender, email, age. Now we want to have like another row, and this time this row is going to have all the data. So like TD, name, for example, Islam. Well, let's just provide all the TDs in here. So I'm going to have 4 TDs. And I'm going to have something like gender, male, email, like admin@me.com, and yeah, for like age you can have like something like 25 or something, whatever. And there you go. So we got email, male, Islam, and pretty much the age. Now we got the name only taking actually one column space, but we can take like 2 column space if you would like to. So how we can do this, for example, we can do like the TH, so we can have column span, and we can have them to set to 2. If we refresh that, now the table in here, the name took 2 column spans, and we got the gender, email. Now the age is left out because it doesn't have any data. We got only 4, and the name already took 2. So yeah, there you go. You got the math right, and that's what happened. So you can have name getting all of that. Also, we can have like row span if you want to do so as an attribute. So you can do row span 2. And you got it right. Yeah, it's going to take 2 table rows inside of out of these, and it's going to be quite messy, but it depends on the situation you want the table to be looking like. Is all of that is going to be happening inside of this. So yeah, column span and row span are particularly for that. There's also one thing that we want to like handle or cover in here is actually caption. Is just like a simple note, like users information. Okay. Can have something like this, and it's going to be caption displayed like some info about the current table. So you want to display this caption just right above the table in here, and that what is a caption is using the caption elements, of course. So that's what a table is. It's pretty basic, and it's a really powerful data structure to pretty much visualize data right. So that was actually the first crash course on this series of Learn in 60 Minutes crash course. We're going to be having so many more from the CSS, JavaScript, React, Angular, and many more crash courses are coming on the way. So stay tuned, guys. Make sure to subscribe down below, and yeah, push that like button, and just like express something, express some interest in your comments, and I will be very happy to read your comments and respond to you guys. Anyways, guys, as I said before, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have enjoyed the video tutorial. Hope you guys enjoyed the crash courses. If you want more, put a link in the comments below. if you're happy to read in it. See you guys hopefully in the next crash courses. Adios.